avanti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro,
This mug, it's a Starbucks mug, but they opened like their first shop in Milan, and this is what it looks like. So they put on there. This is Starbucks.
Is it one of them that heats up when it's warm?
No, this is just normal ceramic. It just looks nice.
Yeah, that's cool. Right.
I have one that heats up when it's warm, but it's like the lightsabers. It's pretty cool.
I've seen that. That's kind of cool. I'm into it.
Ready?
Yeah, we've been recording.
Hello. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, in slightly unfamiliar surroundings. I'm in Nottingham at my girlfriend's uni accommodation. For those of you who don't know Nottingham that well, it's where Milan's founder, Herbert Kilpin, was born. So I'm hopefully going to visit the pub where he apparently used to frequent and stuff like that. Hopefully going there at some point. But yeah, joined by Anthony Torgreed.
Yeah, I think the most surprising part of that whole story is you have a girlfriend. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Ollie doesn't just write. He actually has a little bit of a social life as well. Apparently I don't. I've been awake for less than 20 minutes at this point. So got coffee and I'm here and I'm ready. And yeah, Maddie, you're here. And this is your fault why I'm awake so early.
You're welcome. I have a full day ahead of you. I'd have nothing else to say.
Like normal. Yeah, boys. Well, it seems to be a recurring theme over the last few months that while the season's been on anyway, that we've been doing this, that we have 2 wins to recap. This week we have 2 more wins to recap, which is great fun. Also some transfer news. We're getting to that sort of stage now where my job's a nightmare. You know, I'm not just writing match previews, press conferences, interviews, match reviews, analysis, all that kind of stuff. But also there's about 50 different transfer rumours going on at the moment. This is definitely the most difficult time of the year. So, you know, you can thank me later for sparing my presence for this podcast. But yeah, we've got Bodø Glimt to review first up, and then Sunday's win over Crotone next. Start with the Europa League game. So we're into the playoff round, which is tomorrow. We're recording on Wednesday, as per usual. Trip to Portugal. So we played Bodø Glimt at San Siro. In our predictions, you two were slightly bolder than I was. I thought that it'd be a tight game and that we'd definitely concede. It ended up being a tighter game than any of us thought. But it was a good one, you know. For Europa League qualifiers, they can sometimes be stale, especially after Milan took the lead. I thought it might be a little bit, you know, a bit boring as we tried to see the game out. But I actually really enjoyed playing against a team that tried to break us down.
Yeah, they scored first, right?
Yeah, they went 1-0 up.
Okay.
Granted, they only had a lead for like 40 seconds. It wasn't too long, but still, they scored first.
And then scored a second time. A freaking stunner.
Yeah. Yeah, and without him getting us back in the game, you know, it could have been an entirely different story had he not scored that right away. It was, you know, credit to Ollie for predicting it, and credit to Bodø. They were significantly better than I anticipated. A lot more up for the game than I thought they would be. You know, I said last week on the pod that I'm sure they're going to play their hearts out and they're up for it, but ultimately it was going to be a thrashing by us, and I was wrong.
I thought they were going to beat us, and after the first 15 minutes, I was like, "Oh, we're fucked."
Yeah." When they scored that goal, I was like, "Well, there's that," and then we knew we were back in it. I was like, "All right, we're good." But they definitely stayed in the entire game. I'm
going to be bold and say that obviously we've been on a roll in 2020 and we've steamrolled some teams at home, but I think they're the best footballing side in terms of a one-off performance that we've seen at San Siro in 2020. They were even better than Atalanta were, who I was disappointed with, given that we had so many players out for that 1-1 draw. They were better than Juve were, because Juve got a couple of lucky goals and then we came roaring back. You know, better than Roma, who we beat. You know, Genoa weren't a great side. They went 2-0 up and we couldn't really.
They should have scored in the final minute of the game.
They should have taken it to extra time. They're an exciting team. Like, we knew it. We'd seen how many goals they'd scored in the league, how many points they'd racked up. And I think it's perhaps just a lesson for those fans who think, I've never heard of this team, therefore they can't be any good. And I understand why people might say the Norwegian league isn't as high in terms of prestige. That's correct. But when a team's 16 points, now 18 points ahead, that proves that they're probably better than that league, you know?
Yeah.
And their best player, we'll talk about it now before we move on to the Crotone game. The best player on the night was a guy called Jens Petter Hauge, 20-year-old winger. I picked him out before the game. as a player to watch because he'd got at that point, I think it was 20. It was definitely 25 or something like that combined goals and assists in
I think it was 16 goals
match.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of matches.
16 and 8, something like that. Anyway, it was comfortably over 20 goals and assists combined in the season. The Norwegian season, because they have such harsh winters, starts a bit earlier, so then they're not far off completing theirs, but that's still incredible stats. You can't ignore something like that from a 20-year-old. He played out on the left wing, and Calabria was coming off a good game, and he made him look very, very ordinary. I'll say that. And also actually just caused problems for the entire back four, which wasn't really expecting, given that the offensive threat that Bodø had was meant to be quite spread out. They had a few players who were like over 10 goals, but you thought if anyone's going to be the difference maker, it's going to be this Hauge guy. Proven right, he scored an absolute belter, 25-yarder to make it 3-2. Provided the assist with an amazing run for the opener, and should have had another assist at the end when Saltness hit that one over the bar in the dying stages. He was so good that we've decided to sign him. Now, this instantly, it'll make people think of like what Sir Alex Ferguson did with Bebe, and even Cristiano Ronaldo, both Sporting. I think they were both Sporting players actually, so. Not only have we decided to sign him, but a bit of a shameless brag here. We were the first ones to report that we were interested in him. Obviously, people asked about the source when it came out. We can't reveal the source. The whole point is the anonymity of it. But it was something that didn't come from our side. This is why we were so confident in the deal going through, is because it didn't come from our side. It came from Norway. So they had no reason to lie, because obviously they didn't want to lose a player like that. So we knew that there was something serious in it. Kept getting updates saying that it's progressing well. Milan are trying to close up the deal because there's other teams interested. And then here we are, as we're recording, he's literally just signed his contract. Fees around about €5 million. Based on what we saw and based on the stats, absolute no-brainer, right?
Yeah, it's a steal. We saw him tear our team apart. It's one thing to see a player in like a Norwegian league with the numbers that he had and think, okay, he's better than that league, but is he good enough for a top 5 league, But it's another thing to see him play against a team in the form that we are in a top 5 league and rip us a new asshole, and that means he could jump right into our team. We know where our weak spots is. He slots right in. So I'm blown away. I think he's only going to get better with us. He might not get 16 goals in Serie A this season. Don't expect that, but definitely expect his performances to be great. His numbers are going to be up there. He's going to help us. I'm excited.
I expect him, like the last quarter of the season, to start putting up some numbers, like some assists and some goals once he gets acclimated to the team, learns the language a little bit, and kind of gets comfortable. He's 20, so he's leaving home, and hopefully he can keep his mental up, or his mental strength up,
Yeah, let's not forget, he comes from a town of 50,000 people. I mean, he's a small town boy, so it's a huge difference. The
San Siro can fit his town plus part of Milan.
Yeah,
I actually thought about writing that. Yeah, we did a really good interview with a Norwegian journalist, which is worth checking out if you go to the features page on our website. That's all about his background and about just how humble sort of his upbringing has been. And it's a fantastic story in its own right, and I'm proud to have our name associated with it. But yeah, just from a pure playing point of view, it makes perfect sense for us. He can play anywhere along the front three, really. Left wing, right wing, attacking midfielder. Naturally, his best performances have come on the left wing because he can cut in onto that right and shoot. Now, him being right-footed means that, in theory, he could also play on the right wing. I wouldn't be surprised if we tried him out there, especially if another right winger doesn't arrive. The point is, he's 20 years old. He's probably 5 years off his peak. You look at a Çalhanoğlu who's hitting his peak now at 26, going into 27. So he's got a long time before he becomes the finished product. So there's still a bit of moulding that we can do there, in my opinion. But all the signs are there. He's got raw talent. He can shoot. He can dribble past players. He's got skill moves. He's got a good weak foot. He's got an eye for a pass. You know, if you see him drop into that hole, he's fantastic to watch. We've also got a Football Kareem did a fantastic little montage video for us, which you'll see on our Twitter. I'll pin it after this, but that just shows exactly what he's all about. He's a very exciting player. In fact, the last time they got excited about an attacking midfielder / winger who was joining us, having looked good in a league that we didn't know much about, it was Lucas Paqueta.
Who's gone now.
So it comes full circle in a way, because 19 months later, Paqueta's on his way to Lyon, as has been confirmed now by Jean-Michel Aulas, who's Lyon's president. We'll come on to that deal in a minute, but the difference, I think, is with Hauge, 5 million euros is the fee. It's such low risk with potential high reward. The pressure that Paqueta arrived with him being the most expensive signing for us, well, not the
Since
most
Bonucci.
expensive, but one of the most expensive signings in the recent era, meant that he was almost doomed to fail from the start, because he was never going to be afforded the correct time to adapt to the league. And, you know, there's all kinds of rumours from credible sources as well, like Milan
You
News.
look at players like Hakan and Kessie, who struggled when they arrived, and they were given the time. Now they're starters that none of us can imagine playing without. You know, Paqueta wasn't given that kind of time, but he also was never going to have that kind of time because of his price tag, like you said. He had to perform immediately. And to his credit, he did. When he arrived, he performed that first half of the season that he was there. But then he had that suspension to end the season, and he never recovered.
No, and Gattuso went. And also, something that I didn't even think about, at the end of the season, Leonardo went. And, of course, Leonardo was the one who, being a fellow Brazilian, showed so much faith in him to bring him over in the first place. Like you say, he played well, and that was the position thing. You can say it does hold weight and it doesn't, but we played him in the midfield three as the most forward in the midfield three, but also as a winger that season under Gattuso. And then since then in the 4-3-1-2 under Gianpaolo, it didn't work out. In the 4-2-3-1 under Pioli, it just didn't work out. I think it was a lost cause. But if you look at, like you said, Kessie and Çalhanoğlu, they've kind of turned around their form when not many of us were expecting them to hit the levels that they have. And that is causing a lot of fans to be like, are we letting it go of a real gem here too early? But we haven't seen anything to suggest that you know, we're getting rid of someone who's going to go on and win the Ballon d'Or. 21 million euros the fee. Happy? Should we have got more? Happy?
Yeah, that's spot on. We're just not going to get more. His value's decreased. He hasn't put in good performances, and it is what it is. You know, what is the amortization that we lose a little bit? We lose like a couple million, right?
Yeah, if it goes into the 2019-20 accounts, then we'll have lost around about 2 million. But if you look at it, because we've gone through a quarter of this new financial year, that we actually end up breaking roughly even.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say it would be the 2021 season.
Wages saved as well, which doesn't factor into the fee, obviously.
That's the big thing. I mean, it is what it is. You got to get him off the books. It's a failed experiment. You know, no hard feelings towards him. We all want him to succeed, but he didn't. Oh well.
It is what it is, and also Anto Vitiello did a good piece, basically saying why 21 million is a masterpiece, but. You know, the stats, 1 assist.
2 goals, I think.
Yeah, in his entire time. You know, he hadn't scored a goal. He didn't score a goal, all of last season. It just wasn't happening for him in any position. Then also, you've got to consider that there was all the rumours. Don't want to go into it too much, but the rumours that he was struggling off the pitch, like Maddie said, with adapting to the culture, adapting to the language, didn't have any sort of Brazilian teammates until Duarte came, I guess, to gel with. And then he was being left out of squads. You know, he wasn't even included in the Europa League squads, which we actually named a 19-man squad for the Shamrock Rovers game rather than naming Paqueta in it. And that was like, this is why I said it is a masterpiece for us to get 21 million in guaranteed money for a player that we were not even included in our squads despite having a huge injury crisis. If I'm Lyon, I'm thinking, you know, it's a risky investment. I know they're going to have a lot of money to play around with because they're going to sell Hussein and Jeff Rene Adelaide for probably a combined 70 mil. So they can probably afford to spend a portion on that and just bank on Paqueta getting some kind of form. But we've done well there, and it gives us a bit of liquidity for the incoming market, which we'll come on to. But yeah, just quickly on the Bodø Glimt game, really good moment for Lorenzo Colombo. I've got to mention it, otherwise I'll feel terrible. But Colombo's first senior start for us, and he scored. He couldn't miss, and it was an amazing assist from Hakan. But you could see what it meant.
It technically was an assist from Hakan. I thought it was, but the defender got a touch on it.
Never. I thought he got it. I thought he was giving the assist. You're thinking of the other.
Yeah. It's still early for me.
Yeah,
on game.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was buzzing for Colombo to score that goal. I think people still need to be careful. You know, we could fall into the Patrick Cutrone trap if he was to go and score away at Rio Ave on Thursday night. People saying, you know, Europa League, he's going to find his feet, and then in Serie A, he's going to explode. He's younger for a start. He's 18. But it wasn't a 10 out of 10 performance. It probably wasn't even a 7 out of 10 performance from him overall. But strikers get the goals, and he got the goal. So I was very happy for him on that front. In terms of other notes, there wasn't an awful lot apart from two players that disappointed. Expected more from Gabia. He looked a little bit lost. You know, that's a game against a lot of other young players where you think you've got to be asserting yourself here and proving that you can handle playing against these kind of teams, because it's exactly who we're going to face in the Europa League if we get to the group stages, and exactly the kind of games that you're going to get opportunities in. So he had to do better. You know, he stood off for a couple of the goals and for the 2 goals, and it wasn't brilliant, but he did respond on Sunday, which I'll give him credit for. And Castillejo was crap again. I'm sorry, he was just poor. I don't know what to say. You know, he didn't respond with a good performance against Crotone, unfortunately. Just to hark back to like over the summer when we were talking about that right wing spot, and we never really picked it up as a huge need. It was always right back, you know, a midfielder and stuff. And now I'm thinking, how have we got to a position where we never mentioned Castillejo as sellable?
Because no one will buy him. I mean, I think we've all kind of chimed up on that for a while, that he hasn't been good enough. And I think we've all known the right wing's an issue. The problem was a hole in your defense is significantly larger than a hole in your offense, especially when it's your right wing and when you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic up top and Rebic out wide. You know, you could make up for that hole. But having that hole at right back is significantly larger. Now that Calabria stepped up and basically closed that gap in his last few performances, the obvious hole is that right wing. Bringing in JPH, we think, okay, he could come in. I mean, I know he's obviously a left winger, but he's played 20 games on the right in the last 3 seasons. He's got 14 goals and assists combined, 10 assists and 4 goals in that. I mean, still fantastic numbers. That's better than Castillejo in his entire tenure with us. So we need someone there. And I don't know if JPH is the answer, because there's so many other positions he could fill, but he's definitely going to cover that gap a little bit, at least in the Europa League. I don't know about the Serie A yet, but that's what we need. And Chiesa was a target. Now he's going to Juve, it sounds like. So I don't know what we're going to do, if we're going to do anything, you know? I mean, do we go for another defender now that we have Paqueta money? And then we're going to get Europa money when we beat Rio Aves on tomorrow? Who knows?
You know, you were real confident last week. I would
I'm always confident. Until we lose, I'm going to pipe up.
Let's do Crotone, and then let's do the market, because the market is kind of mental at the moment. But there are a couple of things that feed into it, I guess. So Crotone, news came out before the game that Leo Duarte has got COVID and Zlatan has COVID. And it's funny because I clipped Maddie saying that let's hope none of the team get it. And it ended up happening. So let's have no more predictions like that. It seems to be like the Grim Reaper. Well, they haven't died. They're fine. But Zlatan had COVID. So they're in isolation, basically, weren't available for the trip to Crotone. It's a long trip, by the way, all the way to the south of Italy. But it meant Rebic started up front. And Brahim Diaz got his first start. Sandro Tonali got his first start. So we'll start, I guess, with the game as a whole wasn't great, but Rebic won the penalty. He looked really slow in that first half to me, Rebic. You know, where before he offered something different to Zlatan up front because he ran so much and he ran it quickly and he dragged defenders out of position. He looked a bit slow, you know, like pre-Christmas.
I'm wondering if it's because he is playing a different position. You know, that he's, you know, he has to outrun more people and just outrunning the one defend, you know.
Yeah, I think going from playing winger to striker is not as straightforward as some people think, especially if you go into playing as the only striker. You know, some players can adapt from playing out wide to playing as a support striker. You know, like when we were linked with Angel Correa from Atletico Madrid. He can probably play both of those roles pretty well. Rebic has played striker before. He's done it at Eintracht when needed. So there is something to suggest. But he's just not Ibra. You know, Ibra, I can't remember who it was. I did an interview. I can't remember who it was. But basically, Ibra occupies all 3/4 defenders at once because they're so concerned with his movement because of his size. They know that if they don't get that edge on him, he's going to make them pay. With Rebic, you just feel like if you can manage to get him into areas of the pitch where he ain't going to do anything, then he doesn't do anything. I liked it when we played with Rebic up front last season because we tended to look a bit sharper and like we were actually trying to play football and cut teams open rather than just cross into Ibra and hoping. But it didn't really work against Crotone, and that is perhaps a bit of a worry because Crotone are not good. They got thumped by Genoa in their first game. They didn't really trouble us at all. I think they're going back down based on what's seen, but then also, you know, Rebic won the pen. I suppose that was a good bit of centre-forward play. He brought it down with, like, his armpit and then ran on and got fouled. Kessié scored the pen. Kessié was my man of the match, by the way. I thought utterly dominant, like, by far the best player on the pitch in terms of just stamping on the game. And then Brahim Diaz got the second from close range, his first start, his first goal, which was really nice to see. It wasn't a vintage performance, but at this point, it's just, like, keep ticking off the wins and keep ticking off the clean sheets, I suppose. And Kier and Gabbia did a lot better in this game, and Calabria went back to having a fantastic game. So that was all well and good.
When does Romagnoli return, speaking of the defenders?
He'll be back after the break.
Oh, okay. So he'll be back in time for the derby. That's nice. I mean, do you think we start him?
Play him. No, I won't play him in the derby. He doesn't have a good game usually anyway. But if Gabbia and Kier are keeping clean sheets, not for fun, but you know they've had a decent start to the season. Yeah. You play the guys who are in form, probably. You don't throw Romagnoli after a 3. What will it be? Coming up to 3-month absence straight into a game like that, in my opinion. Also, we could sign a defender. We'll come on to that, but we could sign a defender who's ready to throw in there. We'll see. But yeah, Romagnoli back up to the derby. Probably be the same for Duarte. It'll be the same for Ibra. It'll be the same for Rebic, who had a pretty gruesome injury, it'd be fair to say, in that game against Crotone. It was a break led by Tonali. He just tumbled under his own feet, like nobody tripped him or anything. Landed, popped his elbow out. You could see in the picture his elbow was like round the corner from his arm, which was really nasty, but it was a dislocation and not a fracture. As I tweeted after the game, dislocation, not from experience, but I did knack on my finger doing like a similar thing. What?
It's just funny.
I didn't dislocate my elbow. But yeah, dislocation is better than a break because obviously you've got to wait for the fracture to heal totally, and that takes 6 weeks. Dislocation, you can pop it in, and it's just a case of watching the movement and making sure it doesn't pop back out. So he'll be back after the break as well.
Yeah, the big thing with the dislocation is making sure there's no nerve or muscle damage, and they said there wasn't any.
And there wasn't.
Yeah, we're fine. It's actually
much more likely with
as far as an injury goes.
Yeah, it tends to be, I think it's knee and shoulder when you can get, sometimes you can get some bad nerve damage or some tissue damage or whatever it might be. Elbow, you're usually okay. So that's good news because we could have done without losing him for 6 weeks. So that's done. So now we head towards the end of the market, basically. Paqueta's gone, so we've got a bit of money to play with, so we understand. So we're not getting Wesley Fofana. He's going to Leicester for 40 mil. We can't compete with that, really. You know, they're offering Prem wages as well, you'd imagine. Probably not getting Nikola Milenkovic at this point. So the centre-backs that we've got on the table, so it seems, are Takahiro Tomiyasu from Bologna. This one's come up recently as a rumour, but he's only 21. He's looked pretty good whenever he's played against us, I think it would be fair to say. He played right back towards the end of last season and scored against us when we beat Bologna 5-1. And then it was a great goal as well. And then this season he played centre back and he kind of held their defence together. You know, apart from that, they were getting ripped apart really. Then there's like Christopher Ayer from Celtic, who's, you know, big, tall, physical. Who's the other ones? Matija Nastasic from Schalke. Not for me. We talked about him last week. Injury prone. There ain't an awful lot, though, apart from that. There's Nacho Fernandez keeps getting mentioned, who's Real Madrid. The only problem is he can play right back as well. The only problem is he's 30. And
it would be a dry loan. It's not as beneficial as
if we've got the cash. If we've got the cash, I think we need to be looking at someone who's going to be with us for a few seasons, you know?
Yeah, I mean, out of the names, I'd say Tomiyasu is the only one that is even slightly interesting, just because he could cover two positions that we need. It's nice to have someone that can slot in like that, but and he's young. Like I said, he's 21 years old. The price tag, I believe, is around also the same, 20 million?
20, 25, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a doable operation. It's on the steeper end as far as what we would be willing to pay in a window like this. But, I mean, we're on crunch time. There's only a few days left of the window. We need to sign someone. So I don't want to say panic buy, but we might have to not be the winners, so to speak, in this negotiation and just say yes and buy him. You know, we've done great business in every deal so far, so I don't mind if we pay a little extra on one player that we need.
It's one of those signings. It's funny because someone did a list, I can't remember who it was, and it was like, do you think Maldini has a type? Looked at the players that we were linked with, Milenkovic, that Nodi Mukiele from Leipzig, who would still be my choice because Leipzig play a really similar style to us and he's got Champions League experience. Tomiyasu, Nacho, there was another one, but basically centre-backs who can play right back. So it's like if we keep having these problems at right back, we've already got a guy who could potentially shuffle in there. It kills two birds with one stone. And 20 mil for a 21-year-old player who's probably going to arrive on a 5-year deal. You know, you amortise that 4 mil a year on the books. It doesn't feel that bad for a player who could become a very key part of our future. And also, Tomiyasu, it feels like a really vague and generic point to make, but we saw it with Honda as well. Like the marketing alone would be incredible. You know, we would sell a lot of shirts in Japan by signing Tomiyasu because he's a Japan international. He's the next big thing, and they love big players who go to big clubs. So it almost paid for itself, I think, in that respect. So it gets a tick. We just need someone in at this point. Now, you can either wait and see if a deal becomes available, like Chris Smalling, let's say. I'd still be in favour of that. You know, I think he'd be a good addition. Again, another player who's got Champions League experience, was really good at Roma last season. That could be an opportunity. I think in all likelihood, you know, we probably sign a centre-back permanently. And if we were to manage to shift out like Duarte on loan or something, which seems unlikely at this stage, but whatever, then we could maybe get Nastasic in on loan with an option to buy and just see how it goes and send him back if he's not good enough. But then anyway, another thing came out. A few different places have reported that we've had an offer for Andrea Conti and that we're after Man United's Diogo Dalot to replace him. Sky said this, so it seems to be a thing, and they've doubled down on it as well and said we're actually in concrete talks with United about it. I don't know too much about him to say he's been playing here in England, but that's because he hasn't been getting a lot of playing time under Solskjaer. They have got Wan-Bissaka and they have got Fosu Mensah, who are both playing ahead of Dalot, but Dalot can play right back, left back, can even play a bit further forward. But there was so much hype about this guy when he signed from Porto. And you think about the fullbacks or even the defenders that have made the move from the Premier League to Serie A and flourished. I'm not against this alone with option. You know, it bolsters that position, and all of a sudden our defensive department was pretty solid.
I don't know enough about him to really have an informed opinion, to be honest with you.
Same.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. If you think it's a good move, then let's
He's
do
better
it.
than
But
Conte, then
yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
it.
Is I don't think there's many options worse than Conte out there. So I guess it's a step up.
Yeah, Conte. I mean, I don't know who it would be, but apparently the club that's interested is from Italy. So it might be like a Parma who were linked before. Let's say he went loan with option for 10 mil, and Dalot would be loan with option for 15. More?
Conte won't go 10 mil. There's no way.
You know the thing?
No, I bet 8.
I was going to say 5 to 8.
Possibly, yeah, because of his injuries. In fact, he's 27.
Getting, 20 for Paqueta or 25?
Yeah.
21-ish, yeah.
21. Yeah, you might not. I mean, Maldini could work some kind of magic here.
Yeah, but look at Ricardo Rodriguez, who's, in my opinion, more comparable to Conte, and he went for 1.5, you know? I
think that we were just trying to clear him
fullbacks
off
don't go for a lot of money.
No,
right, and that's what we're
ones.
definitely trying to do with Conte as well. Granted, it's a position we lack depth in, so maybe we would value him a little higher, but I just don't see 10 mil happening. No way.
I think the player who's interested in who has a bit of market value is probably Laxalt. He's the one who's sort of still got age on his side, and he's a Uruguay international, and teams have seen what he can do, and there were teams from Russia that were interested, and apparently now Sporting Lisbon are interested. We're asking for 10 mil, and you think about it, 10 mil, it would be quite a nice boost, you know, for a player who's literally a backup, and we haven't seen barely anything of since he came back. But then you've got to go out and find a replacement, so it becomes an unnecessary headache perhaps late in the window. But we'll see. There's not an awful lot really going on in terms of the midfield either. All summer we've heard that Pioli wants 2 holding midfielders. He wants 2 pairings basically. He wants Benacer Kessié, and then he wants Tonali and someone else. Tonali Krunic isn't going to work, so everyone thought we'll bring back Bakayoko, or we'd get Boubakary Soumare, or even Anguissa from Fulham, who might still be an option. We don't know. But I still think if Krunic goes, then we bring someone in that position. But we've done that topic to death. The right wing is where it's interesting. Because obviously we've been linked with Chiesa sort of briefly for the whole window, as in like nothing too concrete. But Gazzetta dello Sport are adamant that we're doing things under wraps, and that we are the only team now. Juve have kind of dropped out because they can't sell Costa or Bernardeschi, and obviously they've got Kulusevski already. We're the only team that are concretely in for him, so we'll see if anything happens there, because he ain't going to renew his contract. You wouldn't have thought. Comiso came out and said basically that Fiorentina's revenues aren't great. He came out and said that today. So I think they know that this is the right time to cash in. The player probably knows it's the right time to make that move to a big club in Italy. If we're the only team and he pushes to move to us, we can get something done in an advantageous way, in my opinion. You know, like a 10 mil loan with 30 mil option, let's say. You know, we use half of the Paqueta money to make sure that Chiesa arrives. And then if we get to the Champions League, we've got so much extra revenue that we can afford to sign all these players that we've got the options on. And if not, then we just pick and choose. You know, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'd like to see us go down that route, but...
Yeah, I do too. But I think Juve's in, and I think they're offering a lot more than we can. So if that's the case, then it's just not going to happen. Real quick to get off topic, go back to what we were just talking about. Leon has officially announced Paqueta with the video and everything. Fees 20 million euros, so that's completely official now. So, Paqueta's gone.
Inter 4-1 up before half-time.
Well, that also sucks.
That is bad. And Spezia are winning at Udinese, so there's some weird...
Wait, who is Inter playing? Are they Roma, right? Oh,
Benevento.
well, whatever.
Your surprise package. I don't know, actually. But anyway, the other winger that we're now being seriously linked with is Florian Thauvin from Marseille. Now, I did talk about it on the podcast, didn't I? About
multiple times.
Did I? Right, good.
Yeah.
Good, because this is my agenda. And there were a few people who at the time said, injury prone, bad suggestion to sign him. I wrote a whole feature about why it'd be a good idea to sign him. You know, it might even be a better option than Chiesa when you look at the finances of the deal. But, now we've actually been properly linked with him. 15 mil. And for those who thought that the injury that he sustained last season would, harm him in any way, he's got 2 goals and 2 assists in 5 games this season. So he's looking pretty good again.
Some of those were against PSG as well.
He scored a winner against PSG in the league. And he's looking pretty good. 15 mil because his contract runs out in June. So you can either risk it and wait and try get him for free next summer. But I think in a position that we need better offensive production, and we need someone who we can put there for 35 games a season, and they're going to get you a decent return. We could do a lot worse than Talvin.
Well, yeah, and now that we know we just made 20 mil off Paqueta, or that we have 20 mil, if we spend 15 on Talvin and another 1.5 for his salary that season or whatever, like, we still have a little bit of margin there. So, I mean, it's essentially free if you look at it that way. Like, there's no reason not to make a move for that. I understand waiting, but we don't have the luxury of time right now. We need to make a move. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea.
He's made it pretty clear as well that he's not going to sign a renewal, which means that Marseille might even accept closer to 10 because they know that he's going for free. Otherwise, he'll sign with another club in January and they won't get a penny for it. So we could maybe do something there. Not an awful lot. Jovic thing keeps coming up, but I still don't see it happening. I think Pioli's made it. Yeah, he's made it clear as Pioli that he's happy with the options that can play striker. So that's about it, really. We got a couple of games to quickly preview. 2 with respect non-major opponents as well. We've got Rio Ave, as we mentioned, or Rio Ave. I don't know how it's pronounced.
I think it's Ave. It's just short for Avenue.
I haven't managed to get an interview yet with. They've been the most difficult in terms of getting opposition insight. I just know that they have Lucas Piazzon, who you might remember as the old Chelsea wonder kid, who went to Cologne and he's been all over and he's ended up there. So he's a winger for them. Their best striker from last season, who actually scored, I think he scored 18 goals in 30 games, has now gone to Porto. They've had 2 league games this season. They've drawn both of them 1-0 and one of them 1-1. Last season, they were the lowest scoring team in the top 6. They were definitely a better defensive team. So I think this is a team that tries to stifle, tries to win games 1-0. And, they're going to allow us to play on the front foot, which I think plays to our advantage. I don't really have much more of a scouting report than that. So prediction, I've gone 2-1 because we have a lot of players out. And we're having to field quite a young front four. But yeah, AJ?
I mean, you were basically right last time out, so I'll just piggyback on that and say 2-1.
Yeah, I was looking at their past games, and as long as we score 2 goals, we should win. So 2-1 or 2-0.
Yeah, I'd take that. Juggling injuries, it's getting to that. We've got a couple more games before the break, and the break is going to be so welcome for us in terms of getting a batch of the injured players back. We've just got to win somehow. It's like Crotone. I was nervous going into it because I'm like, this is peak Milan. We're meant to win our early games, and we never do, and it puts us behind. This is where, after injuries and stuff, we already fall apart. It didn't happen. Just hoping, get the job done, move on. Spezia. We need to get the job done again. We're at San Siro for this one. Spezia is actually winning it at Udinese at half-time, which, they're actually making some decent signings. They're having a better fist of it than I thought they might. They've got Pobega as well. He went on loan there from us, which I think is a good move for him to another Serie A side. I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I just think that... like a lot of the other season games, if we're a serious team, we've got to be winning this without problems. And that's not arrogance. That's just a matter of fact thing. We talked about how the games on paper look fairly straightforward. They have to be straightforward if we actually want to get top 4. Inter are going to Benevento, who have had an encouraging start to the season, and they're thrashing them 4-1. We've got to win this without problems. I think Colombo's probably going to get a start up front, or maybe Rafael Leao if he's up to fitness by this point. But again, I'm going to go with the 2-0 just because I don't think that with all the injuries we have the firepower in us at the moment to put 4 or 5 past the team. So I'm going to go with 2-0 and hope that the back 4 manages to sort of keep us together, especially Kessie and Benacer as well.
Okay.
I hope Leao can play up front because Rebic is way better on the wing than he is up top. Rebic can play, right?
No,
served his 2 games.
It was a 3 ban.
Oh, it's 3. Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be Colombo up top.
So Rebic, so the Rebic will be banned for the first group stage game because he had a 3-match ban for the Europa League, and he's got to be named in the. No, he won't. He won't be banned. He'll serve his ban. I thought that by being injured, he wouldn't be technically in the squad, which means he wouldn't have served that final game of his ban because he wouldn't have been eligible, whatever. But no, he should be back because he was named in the overall squad, which is a big squad. So that's fine. But he won't be back for the Spezia game anyway, because obviously he's got to take 10 days out because of his dislocation. So we'll be without him for both games. But yeah, just got to find a way to get it done against a team that might surprise a few this season in Spezia. So I gone 2-0. Colombo's going to score.
Is Tonelli going to start? I missed what you said.
I'm not Pioli, so I don't know.
I thought that you predicted a lineup.
No,
I'm not Pioli. Really? You don't wear turtlenecks?
Well, you
I've never worn one in my life.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's
turtleneck
hey, for me, it's a giraffe.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
you need like an extra long. Yeah.
It'd be like a pant leg.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's it. If you two aren't asked about doing a prediction.
Move along, I guess.
2-0.
Why didn't we should have done this so it's more serious as like a league table. Might start doing it from next week. Where we do a league table in terms of points on predictions. Anyway, that's it, I guess. Anything to add, lads?
No questions this week?
I forgot to put the tweet out because we recorded early. It's my bad. Yeah.
So to all the listeners, Oliver doesn't like you.
It's my fault. It's my fault. We can make some up. What are we gonna make?
I guess we're good then.
Why doesn't? Oh, we got a question here from Freddie Londo. He says, "Why doesn't Maddie take more responsibility on the podcast?"
Because I don't want to.
All right, yeah, let's cut it there. What do we do?
Yeah, let's end it there. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle. Being joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next week.
Ditto.
And Madison. Sweet. Right, catch you in a week's time. Hopefully 2 more wins.
Andrea Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, gol!